Good morning, everybody. My name is Richard Bach from the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. So what's changed in a year? Well, when I spoke at this a year ago, that used to say, or that said at the time, Department for Business Innovation and Skills. And actually, you'll see on the rest of the slides, it still says Department for Business Innovation and Skills. There are good reasons for that. We've actually been moved as a unit, so the Digital Economy Unit, which is what I'm part of, has been moved now, instead of being a joint unit, across DCMS and BIS. We're moved by machinery of government change, as it's called, by the Prime Minister in one of his first decisions after the election. So we are now wholly contained within Department for Culture, Media and Sport. Why is that? Well, there are some good reasons around use of radio spectrum and so on, so that we've got the effort all co-located in one place. So it's really the M bit, the media bit, which is our rationale for being there. In terms of the other bits, we can probably stretch it, can't we, as to why we're there. So I'm sure you've all been in the cybersecurity business for a while, so you know that cybersecurity is a team sport. Good so far. And obviously, so not all countries follow this ethos, but in the UK, maybe it isn't obvious actually, in the UK, what we like to think of is cybersecurity being a question of culture, not compliance. Good. That'll be the full set then. Let's crack on. So, up until not too many years ago, probably the main reason why the UK cared about cybersecurity at all was really because of national security. So it's to do with protecting government interests, the nation's well-being in a sense, military issues, obviously defence, going into defence industry. Broadly speaking, that was our main focus. Got a little bit into critical national infrastructure, but not in anything like the way that we do now. So now it's a very different view of things. The national security piece still applies, so definitely still a tier 1 threat. Please note that. So up alongside acts of war, acts of terrorism, and natural disaster, cybersecurity is just one of the 4 tier 1 threats in the national risk assessment. That's how seriously we take it. But in addition now, we very much see cybersecurity as being an enabler for growth. It's all about economic well-being. And that, in many ways, the imperative, and that's why my unit was originally in BIS, and now we're in DCMS, part of the Digital Economy Unit. It's all to do with that agenda. It's all about helping growth. If we don't have the cybersecurity done right, we're not going to get the growth right. So Chris mentioned the cybersecurity strategy. As you will see, assuming you can read that at all, maybe you can't, although all of this will be available in the slide deck. So the vision that was set out back then in 2011 when this was published appears to age off this year. So we would reasonably assume that there will be another strategy to follow this one. And that's likely to become apparent over the next few months once things like the Strategic Defence and Security Review have completed. In terms of our work, it's very much about Objective 1 and Objective 4. So Objective 1 to do with making the UK a safe and secure place to do business. Objective 4 is all the cross-cutting stuff, whether it's to do with skills, education, so on and so forth. I'm not going to major on that today because we simply haven't got time. And as you can probably tell, I'm trying to go at a heck of a lick because we started late, so it'd be good if we can just catch up a couple of minutes. On the research piece, there's so much to talk about. The Academic Centres of Excellence for Cybersecurity Research, the Research Institutes 1, 2, 3. If you don't know what those are and you want to find out more, then do catch me afterwards or drop me an email because I can't hang around for too long, unfortunately. In terms of skills and education, one of the great things that we've done, and this really speaks to the heart of our mission, is the MOOC, so the massive, probably get the O's the wrong way around, the massive open online course for cybersecurity developed in collaboration with the Open University. So this is freely available. You can get to it online quite simply. It's typically an 8-week course, although one of my new starters has just done it inside a working week, so it's clearly eminently possible to do. And it's a brilliant intro. So far we've had around 40,000, I think it's more than 40,000 people start the MOOC. Not all, I should say, have completed it, but our completion rate compared with other MOOCs around the world for whatever type of discipline is about double. So we're reasonably pleased with that one. The important point, and actually the MOOC is a good segue or a prompt into something that I should say, is that our role in the digital economy unit is really about reaching the masses at large. So this is not about high-end surgical interventions in cybersecurity terms. Okay, this is about reaching industry at large, and also there's some messaging in here for the citizens as well. Some of this really just naturally picks up on the current cybersecurity strategy when we look at it in a different way. So if we drop it into a Wordle and do a word count, you can see that, sure, government appears there, written across the home counties. That's by accident rather than by design. We will also notice, though, that across the Great Glen, your eyes will immediately pivot to the Great Glen because you know your geography. You will see the word business is written even bigger than, you don't have to photograph this, it's all available in the slide deck. You will see that the word business is written bigger than government, and there's a very good reason for that. Chris talked about partnerships. Doing cybersecurity is all about partnerships, and we absolutely see the delivery of the National Cybersecurity Strategy now and going forwards, as and when there's another one, as being about partnerships, and crucially with business. We can't do this alone, we have to do it together. In terms of what it looked like, and bear in mind the current strategy and the underpinning National Cybersecurity Programme ages off at the end of this financial year. Originally 650 mil, that was raised to 860. Please note from this is a level of the commitment that government has towards cybersecurity for the nation, for all of our well-being, okay, whether private citizens or commerce, it makes no difference, in a time of austerity. Even though it's been austerity, 860 mil committed to this over the life of the programme. Hopefully that speaks for itself. So much for that. What does government actually do? Do we come and fix all your problems for you? Well, hopefully by now you're old enough and wise enough to know that government doesn't come around and fix all your problems for you. We're not resourced to do it, and actually it's not in our brief to do. And this will be the same for DCMS as it is for CERT UK, Home Office, and so on. It's not like that. So what is our role? Well, actually our role is one of leadership. It's about saying, this is what good security looks like. And the reason we can do that is because we've got the resources of a state to draw on. Okay, so whether it's in the policy piece in Whitehall, or whether it's into the operational space through Chris and his colleagues, or whether it's into the technical space with GCHQ in Cheltenham, and to some extent MI5 down in Thames House, we can bring all of this together because we've got short links between departments and UK government for the well-being of the nation. That's why it works, and that's our role, is about leadership, and also hopefully to bring some clarity into a challenging space. Now, before we go any further, in case people aren't aware of this, it's worth noting that actually when we talk about cybersecurity, in fact, even if we sort of zoom in a little and just think of information security, we are not able, any of us, to build a citadel around our information assets. Let's just be absolutely clear on that. And in fact, even if we probably could, it would be a virtually unusable system. So in his valedictory, Eisenhower made this statement. His speech has got a lot in it for the academics to study, but there's one quote that I pick up on in particular, which is this notion that actually we can't achieve absolute security, and if we try to, we will bankrupt ourselves in the process. That applies as much now in cybersecurity terms as it did back then in the dark days of the Cold War. Please take that on board. So if we can't build these citadels, what are we going to do? Well, what we need to do is take a risk-managed approach. So we need to understand that we have information assets. We need to understand that there are threats out there who want to get hold of those assets, and the way in which they will do so is by exploiting vulnerabilities. This is standard fare in terms of information risk management. Getting that message over can be really hard, and that's why we've done an amount of work and continue to with engaging the boardroom. So boardrooms across the land, up until relatively recently, didn't really want to engage with cybersecurity. In fact, a lot of them didn't even understand why there would be a need to. Why? Don't worry me about this, Rich. I've got a bottom line to worry about here. There are shareholders to worry about. That has been quite a battle. In fact, I've got, we might not have time, but you see them in the deck at your leisure. I've got some slides at the end which show some changes that we've seen over the last couple of years in boardroom behaviours around this. Generally, they're changes for the good, so broadly the message is starting to get through, but we've got some way to go. Getting the message through is helped by that notion of the bottom line. What you see here, maybe you can't read it. I'm not sure about the resolution here. Maybe it's a poor screen grab. This is lifted from our annual breaches survey. The link is at the bottom of the slide there, so it's all available online. Please do go have a look. What this screen grab is telling us, though, in the top sort of 3 lines and across the columns, is that actually there is a cost to a breach. And even for a small business, the column in the middle there, cost typically around 2 to 12 days of disruption of business, and maybe 40 to 200,000 pounds worth of damage if we put a cash value on it. These are real numbers, everybody. This is not contrived. This is not made up. These are real numbers. And when we go to the large corporates, we stick zeros on the end of that, which is what you see there in the right-hand column. So it's really important that businesses, large businesses in particular, step up to the plate. They get their governance, risk and compliance regimes right, so they're seeing cyber threats as having business impact, and that they are taking them on board accordingly. And the examples that Chris mentioned around Target and Sony are great examples of that. So moving on with boardroom engagement, coming up to 3 years. In fact, it is 3 years ago. 3 years ago this month, we published the 10 Steps to Cybersecurity. Now that has become really, I think, for UK government, a seminal moment in our own cybersecurity journey and in our engagement with business at large. The principles of this still absolutely apply. We did a refresh at the start of this year. If you want a good indication of the areas to consider when you're putting together a cybersecurity plan or strategy, whatever it might be, for your business, for your interest, for your enterprise, this is a great starting point. I'm not going to go through it blow by blow. All of this is available off gov.uk. All the links are in the slide deck. This is an infographic which draws it all together, and you see there very clearly that information risk management is at the heart of things. That continues to be the case. That is very much the centre of our thinking, and everything else then hangs off like that, like the branches off a tree. And I do commend that to you. Well, one of the things that happened after we'd done the 10 steps 3 years ago was that the boardrooms turned around and said, well, thanks for that HMG, really helpful, but actually not so helpful. You haven't told us what to do. There's some stuff in here. We understand the words, but we don't know how to put it in practice. How do we get some forward motion on this? And that was one of the reasons why we embarked on creating what is now called the Cyber Essentials Scheme. So before going into the scheme, we just need to take a quick look at the threat that's out there. So this should be motherhood to you all. It is complex, it is global, it is ever-changing. And the sort of actors that we see, I'm not sort of ranking these particularly on this slide because it depends whether we're thinking perhaps about malware attacks, whether it's social engineering, and so on and so forth. But we can appreciate there are state actors out there. There are probably a relatively small number of those. Down at the other end of the spectrum, for reasons that will become apparent, there are many millions of other actors or aggressors who want to have a go, whether it's for cybercrime or for other purposes. This is the problem, and we've got to get real. When we look at something that's called what we call the commodity threat, the commonly available threat that's out there, think about the Metasploits of this world, Core Impact, Beef, W3AF, and so on. So you name them, whatever your preferred poison is. A lot of these things produced for defensive purposes, but like a machine gun, they can be used to defend or they can be used to attack. It's exactly the same in this space. Now, when you add that sort of capability together, it results in an overwhelming amount, an overwhelming percentage of the total threat that's out there. And it'd be great, wouldn't it, if we could find a way of defending or mitigating that part of the threat. So representationally, on this slightly odd-shaped pyramid, we've got the state actors at the top there, so numerically, quite a small number, but very high-end capabilities, closely followed by the serious and organised crims, and sometimes it'll be hard to get a RISLA paper between those two. This is really sophisticated, bespoke capability. And then as we drop out of the bespoke region, we get into commodity. to give an idea of what this amounts to, the commodity threat here, as seen by government, we reckon that's around 80 or 90% of the threat that's out there. So this is why we'd love to be able to do something about it. And in fact, we have, which is where Cyber Essentials kicks in. So Cyber Essentials, just a set of fairly basic technical controls, which, when used together, will provide good protection from this commodity online threat. So please bear in mind, this is not about the insider threat per se, it's not about removable media or other vectors, it's about the online commodity threat. It may help in those other areas as well, to some extent, but it's all about online. That was our brief, that's what we set out to do. So it's aimed at the enterprise, it's not about industrial control systems or other forms of process control or operational system like PCI DSS type systems, payment systems and so on. This is about the enterprise first and foremost. That's why we've done it. Please note that we would see it as the start of the journey. So this is the absolute basics that anyone should be doing, whether it's an enterprise or whether it's a private individual, it makes no difference at all. Please, please do these things. Do them at home as well as in the office, in other words. The requirements themselves pretty straightforward to the discerning audience that we have here. There should be no surprises. So firewalls, for example, don't just have a firewall, but let's lock it down appropriately. So let's shut off those unused ports, please, everybody, because we really don't need them. What sort of services are transiting the ports, the firewall? Hopefully only the ones that we need. Let's be a little bit savvy about this. Let's not use the out-of-the-box defaults. Let's change passwords and so on and so forth. And so it goes on across those 5 control themes, including running supported software and keeping it patched. Please do that above all else. Please, please. Let's get that attack surface down. Let's reduce the amount of space that the adversaries have to aim at. So in case there are any doubters, in case anyone thinks, Rich, this is nonsense. Those controls are no good. They're not adequate. They're the wrong ones, and so on. This is evidence-based security. So we've done a pile of work based on detection of threats against the UK, the analysis of those. We've enriched that government view with a view from CERT UK and also some sensitive commercial data from partners, which we've fused together. The analysis is available online. And again, actually, the links look a bit low. So there is the link across the bottom of this slide again. You can access all of this stuff online, okay? It's all there for the reading. It's not a heavy read, it's a pretty good read. And what we've seen from this analysis is that actually, if we think of a fairly simple delivery mechanism, sometimes appallingly referred to as a kill chain, using a military term, then actually we can disrupt that kill chain at those midpoints in those ways. That's why we believe in Cyber Essentials. In fact, we believe in it so much that we've dropped it into government procurement, and we would love to see you all doing the same thing. So whatever supply chains you have, protect that soft underbelly. Don't become another target in the US who were hacked via an SME supplier, not even a large supplier, an SME supplier, 150 people. Don't become one of those. Get the basics right for yourself. Do it for your supply chain as well. So in summary, that's what Cyber Essentials looks like. It will give confidence to your customers that you're taking the protection of their data seriously. It is evidence-based. It is the start of a journey. Please, at the very least, do this. Ideally, do some other stuff as well. So that's all about Cyber Essentials, except to say on Tuesday at the Financial Times Cybersecurity Summit, my Minister Ed Vaizey delivered the keynote. I don't know if any of you were there. He made a number of announcements, one of which was that Intel Security have become one of the latest adopters of Cyber Essentials, and we're delighted to have Intel on board. What a powerful message to say, yeah, we absolutely believe in this stuff, and we'll be seeing more announcements involving Intel and others in due course. And the second thing of note to draw to your attention is that Cyber Essentials has been around for about a year, 15 months now. I think when I stood up a year ago, we probably had around 46 or 48 adopters of Cyber Essentials. We've now passed the 1,000 mark. So that was 46 around 3 months in, and now 15 months in, we're over 1,000, and we're really delighted about this. But as Chris said, and there is a reality check here for government, it shows the scale of the challenge, it shows what a lot there is to do, and we're under no illusions about that, lest anyone think differently. Our target audience is what? How many adopters of Cyber Essentials do we want to see? Well, let's have a think about this. If there are 4.9 million businesses in the UK, I reckon 4.9 million is a pretty good target. So as you can see, we're doing very well. Let's bump that number up, everybody. Ultimately, this all forms part of helping bring about a step change in behaviours in cybersecurity. We're trying to make things simple for people so that people can do it. This is reducing technical security, from our point of view, to the irreducible. Okay, we can't do better than that. If you have other ideas for other initiatives that we could put in place in a similar way, please do get in touch. But that's what it's about. Bear in mind, this is for us a question of culture, not compliance. That's absolutely it. Very quickly, I'm going to say something about data protection and cybersecurity. This is an area that causes a lot of confusion. So if you've got a data protection background, you have a particular mindset on the world. If you come from a cybersecurity background, your mindset is going to be slightly different. But actually, what we see at the centre there is a common point. So we need to think about these things holistically. And wouldn't it be great if we could identify that intersection in the Venn diagram? Well, actually, we've done a pile of work on that. And what we've done is we've said, look, all these types of information that we hold, they all have a value of some sort, but sometimes it's really hard to tell whether it's a privacy issue or whether it's cybersecurity. Sometimes, actually, frankly, it doesn't care. And sometimes one can lead to the other in the case of mounting a spear phishing campaign, for example. So why don't we get somehow beyond that and try and do better? And that's exactly what we've done. So we approached the Information Commissioner's Office earlier in the year. And the Information Commissioner, as you probably know, has got some great guidance out there. Their flagship data protection guidance and some underpinning guidance, the guide to IT security. And what we said was, look, we've done this thing, Cyber Essentials. Actually, your guidance contains a pile of this. Why don't we look for some common cause here? And the ICO, so Christopher Graham and his guys said, you know what, that's not a bad idea. Why don't we do that? So they went away and had a look. And what they did in the IT Security Practical Guide, I think that is the proper title for it, again, all available online, these are the main themes that you get in the IT Guide. And if we strip some of those away, what you'll see is that residue. And hopefully you'll see, and this is all verbatim text, hopefully you'll see that there's a good mapping there between the ICO's guidance and Cyber Essentials. So again, thinking about government bringing clarity to the confusing and complex landscape, what's happening here is that the ICO are recasting their guidance, and this will be announced, I would think, within the next month or maybe two, so that it reflects the Cyber Essentials language. And the key message there is that if you have Cyber Essentials, if you've adopted Cyber Essentials as an organisation, actually that puts you in good stead on your journey with the Information Commissioner as well. So hopefully it is bringing that clarity that we all crave. That's why we're doing it. So in summary then, the sort of work that the government is doing, bear in mind this is at scale for the greater good, is pretty much as I've said. So the 10 steps to cybersecurity, bottom left there, that remains the sort of seminal piece, the stake in the ground for us. Off that, we've hung Cyber Essentials, which is underpinned by the Common Cyber Attacks paper, the second one in from the left there. Because we believed in the 10 steps so much, we also produced a small and medium enterprise version of it, which is the third one across. So the language there is better. It's less dense. It's rather more compact. It's rather more brief to get the same sort of messaging out, but in a way that's accessible for the SMEs. And then there is that piece of work with the Information Commission that I just mentioned. Now, I'm not going to have time to do these governance slides, but I will just draw your attention to them in the deck. The important point is that in collaboration with the big audit houses, we go out to the FTSE 350 each year and survey their views. And this is the chairs and audit chairs of the FTSE 350. So seriously high-priced help. And this is a distillation of their thinking. So you can see for what those trends are over time. And there's some really good news in here. There's also some not so good news where, although, for example, risk is being now properly considered to an extent, actually it's not being actively managed. Must try harder. So what about next for government? Well, I'm not going to be too specific here. We will see some additions to the Cyber Essentials scheme coming along, probably, although not definitively, so please don't say so on social media or elsewhere. Probably this will be around making the scheme not just a snapshot, but perhaps something which endures as well. So not just like an MOT, but actually you get that ongoing confidence. And also must do better on cloud. So at the moment, we've got almost just a placeholder in there. We have also put out a pile of guidance on cloud, which came out of GCHQ. It's a really good piece of work, and we're going to integrate better with that, probably. FTSE 350 health check, probably go in a slightly different direction over the next year or two. When you were young and you built an Airfix kit, other vendors are available, you knew what you were going to end up building because there was a picture on the box. Now, as government, we haven't been good at doing that. We think we've put out lots of good messaging, but time and again we are told the messaging doesn't hang together. Rich, it doesn't make sense. It's confusing. You gave us the 10 steps. Now you've got these 5 controls in Cyber Essentials. There's that SANS 20 thing. The Australians did 35. Okay, so that's not our government, but it's all a bit confusing. We've got to be able to do better, and that's what we're doing. So we are in the middle of a piece of work at the moment, really to describe what is in the box in a way that makes it all accessible and crucially usable. In terms of the Strategic Defence and Security Review, that will report in about 2 months' time, I think, so we'll see what comes of that. And crucially out of it, we will see whether we get another national cybersecurity programme or not. Our assumption is, yeah, this is going to happen, but as they say in Brussels, nothing's agreed until it's all agreed. And that's almost certainly the case here. And I think at that point, I'm going to draw stumps and hand over to Daniel. Thank you for your time.